And Aquaman's hanging out with Orm. They're on much better terms than they used to be, chat. Very much acting like brothers. And they go to get burgers and beer. And they're enjoying their burgers and beer. And at one point, a little cockroach, a little fucking cockroach just scuttles across the table. Orm's like, he smashes that shit, puts it on his burger, and just and just starts eating it like a psychopath. And I'm like, that's perfect. Finn. They literally should have just had it say, after him just eating the burger, staring at us like a fucking psychopath, and just have Finn come across the screen. And I'm like, that is so representative of what of the DCEU was, chap. A seemingly delicious cheeseburger with a fat, crunchy, juicy cockroach in the middle that makes you gag when you start to chew it. That is the legacy of the DCU. We're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to the next part of my show today. And that is my review for Aquadad 2, Blue on Blue, also known as AKA Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Depends on, where you are in the world, which territory, chat. Might be called something different in your neck of the woods. And this is the final DCEU movie, and some of you might be asking, they're still making those? Yeah, they're still making them, chat. They're still making them. And in case you need a little bit of a synopsis, a little bit of background, I'll go ahead and tell you right now. Struggling to balance his life as a hero king and now on Aquadad, Aquaman is forced to reunite with his brother Orm to battle the evil Black Manta, who wants vengeance for the death of his father from years ago. So, we finally got here, chap. We finally got here. The end of the DCEU, the end of the DC Extended Universe. Why did they ever put the word extended in there? Why the E in there, Chad? Never made any sense at all. What an exhausting 10-year journey of some ups and mostly downs. I've said for a decade now that this film universe, which started with Zack Snyder's Man of Steel in 2013, was built on a foundation of sand, on quicksand even. Initially giving these films and characters like Batman and Superman and many others to a man who has so little understanding of what makes those characters so good and beloved for decades, has finally led to the death of the DCEU. And it's been an incredibly rough several years for this film universe. Either critical or commercial flops. DC and Warner Brothers have released some of the biggest box office bombs of all time in their history. From Justice League to Black Adam to The Flash to Blue Beetle, and even movies that were great that I even love, like James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, the good one. So many of these movies were failures in a variety of ways, but we've come to the final lap with Aquaman 2, or as I like to call it, Aquadad or Aquabro. And with the constant controversy behind the scenes, terrible test screenings, and I lost track after a while, the 3 or 4 or possibly 5 separate cases of extensive reshoots that literally delayed the film for seemingly years. This movie was seemingly always destined for complete and total failure. But maybe, just maybe, despite everything, despite those circumstances, those pretty terrible circumstances, chat, maybe it could actually be a triumphant last hurrah and also a heartfelt goodbye to the DCEU. I'm telling you right now, it's not that at all. Instead, this is a pathetic last gasp. This is the death rattle of a film franchise that started to die when it was first born 10 years ago, chat. It was on life support from day one. This movie, whether it comes to James Wan's direction, the story, the dialogue, characters, or action scenes, it's just terrible. It's just so terrible. I don't even like the first movie all that much. And this film just doubles down on everything I disliked about that first film, about that original movie. And one of the worst things about the original movie, in my mind, is that it crammed so many different Aquaman stories into one film. Because of that, so much of the subplots with Aquaman himself, Orm, the Trench, Black Manta, Aquaman's mom, Mara, it all felt so half-baked. It has all that here, again, but it also has an identity crisis of what it wants to be tonally. Sometimes it's acting like a self-serious wannabe underwater Game of Thrones, a Game of Thrones knockoff. Other times, it's a buddy cop film with Arthur and Orm trying to do their best Thor and Loki impression. And in another moment, we're doing straight up gross out humor from comedies like Dumb and Dumber. I'm watching this, I'm saying, like, what's going on? What is this movie? And it's very easy to see all the reshoots because the movie can be radically different at any given moment for no reason at all. And in an attempt to try to connect these scenes together, we'll just have like a series of montages with mumbo-jumbo narration, and that's when you know they clearly removed something that was an earlier version, probably a reshoot ago, most likely several reshoots ago that it's just lost to time and space. In terms of the characters, you know, for a long time, I said I really like Jason Momoa as Aquaman. Though I haven't liked the movies he's appeared in as the character, I've always still really liked him. But I can't say that anymore because he's terrible in this movie too. He goes full Aqua Bro, my man, and he's constantly at an 11 when he just doesn't need to be at all. There's points in the film where he's just yelling so much. I'm like, can you just stop yelling at me? Like yelling at all these other people? Just settle down, dude. And he's talking like a drunken frat bro about anything. About anything. It could be important plot points, or it could literally be about burgers, fast food, and beer. To be fair, he has to deliver some atrocious dialogue that must have been changed so many times over that he probably just fell back on that Aqua Bro shtick, that frat boy shtick. Because at the end of the day, that's all he could do in the movie at that point. Because I'm guessing the script probably changed so much and the dialogue was radically different from day to day to day. Patrick Wilson as Orm, who was the villain in the last film, the one of the 15 villains in the last film, he's probably the best character in the movie, but it's kind of obvious he was told to act more like Tom Hiddleston's Loki from the Thor films. He's just a dumber, more naive version of Loki in this movie. There's also a scene with him that is straight out of a 90s gross out comedy like American Pie or Dumb and Dumber, or name any 90s gross out comedy movie, chat. It felt so awkward and gross, and it just made the character so unbelievably shitty. And speaking of shitty, Amber Heard. She is Amber Heard. Amber Heard is in the movie, despite the marketing not wanting to make that a known fact. Much like in the original film, I feel like she's miscast as Mara. She has no chemistry with Jason Momoa. in that movie, and certainly here at all. But it's obvious that James Wan and Warner Bros. Made sure to cut down on her screen time. She doesn't have nearly as much screen time as she does in that original movie, but she probably has more scenes than a lot of people thought she would have, in the long run, in the film itself. And so that's the thing here. So when she does show up, it's always just weird and awkward because they're obviously trying to hide her in the movie. They're giving her so little dialogue to say that it's just like did she just say something? We don't know. The camera's off of her. We're not focusing on her at all. And that makes like even less sense in terms of the narrative for the film. Because her and Arthur have a baby. They have a baby now. And I was hoping, honestly, like even the marketing, to put the little positive spin, it's like, it's Aquadad. They should run with hashtag Aquadad, right? And I wanted some good Aquadad and some good Aquaman family stuff in this movie, but it's just not there. Because they're constantly trying to hide her because of everything that happened with her trial and Johnny Depp and all that. And it's just, you can just feel, it's going to be very interesting, like watching this film, like, people that watch it like 20 or 30 years ago and are like, what the fuck, what happened with this? Like, what's going on here? And then you got to bring up the facts like, well, 30 plus years ago, there was this whole thing about her, her ex-husband, Johnny Depp. And it's going to be such like a weird, demented time capsule of a movie, and it just to show how this real world thing just clearly had such an impact on the production of a film. Although, like I said, she is in a lot more of it than I expected it to be. I think a lot of people expected it to be, but you can tell they cut so much of her stuff out, whether it was before filming or certainly most likely the case with the subsequent reshoots, the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many reshoot sessions they did for this film, the years that delayed this movie. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, as Black Manta, is completely wasted in the film. Much in the same way he was wasted in the original movie. Again, why did you put him in there if you're not going to really use him all that much? He's trying to seek vengeance against Aquaman because his dad, who I'm sorry, he didn't even fucking like his dad in the last movie. Like, I never got the sense that the two of them, because that's like the opening of the original Aquaman, right? That these guys ever really liked each other at all. I never bought that. That I was like, oh no, yeah, these guys are in good terms. He's like, no. He kind of hated his dad in the last movie, and of course, his dad dies. His dad dies in the beginning of the Aquaman film. He wants to find ancient technology, ancient artifacts to improve his abilities and his army to take down Aquaman. It's like, all right, well, I understand that motivation. Okay, that's fine. I think that's good. Hey, it's kind of generic, simple but straightforward. It's like, all right, seeking vengeance because this guy may have had some hand in the death of your parent, even though your parent was kind of a dick. But okay, sure. The problem is, he just ends up getting possessed by some Scooby-Doo sea ghost guy named Korlak or Kordax or whatever, who just wants to conquer the world. Like, he literally takes over his body, and then it's whatever the Kordak guy wants to do. And so I was like, oh, my dad? No. We're gonna do something else. It's like, what? And so they completely even undercut the character. They undercut the undercut character in this movie. And his motivations just fade away, much like the DCEU itself. I have to tell you, I was laughing before we got into the review because someone mentioned burgers. And that it triggered a memory of watching this film. The final scene in this movie, the actual final scene for the DCU itself, to me, perfectly represents the death of the DCEU. Do you guys want to know what it is? You want me to tell you, chat? It's a spoiler. It is a spoiler. It's nothing. It's not like a big plot thing. It's nothing like that. It's actually a gag. It's a joke. That's how it ends. I'm going to see people that don't want to hear what the final joke is of the movie. I'm seeing a lot of yes. I'm seeing yes, tell us, go ahead, yes, do it. Okay, I'm going to spoil this shit, chat. Okay, so there is a gag in the movie where, because Aquaman and Orm, they team up, and that's kind of like the Lethal Weapon section. It's kind of like, Thor, Loki, and any of the other Thor films, or mainly Thor Ragnarok, which is movies borrowing heavily from. So Orm's like, I hate humans. You know, he hates them. He's like, fucking hate them. I hate their goddamn legs. I hate them walking around. They're polluting the planet. He's like, and Aquaman's like, hey, bro. Hey, dude, settle down, broski, man. The humans, they're kind of cool, dude. I think the humans are cool. And he's like, what makes them cool, Arthur? And he's like, well, let me tell you, man. They got a lot of great stuff you're going to really love. They have fast food. Delicious. They have beer. They have alcohol. And he's like, Orm's like, these things sound good. And he's like, oh, and at one point, Aquaman, he sees a cockroach. And he's like, oh, and they love eating these. And he's like, really? And he's like, yeah, man, go ahead. And Orm proceeds to eat the cockroach. Like, Arthur's like tricking him. He's like, oh, this is going to be so gross. He eats that shit. He's like, it's delicious. And it's like, what's happening? And the final scene of the movie, the final scene of the DCEU is, you know, they fucking defeat Black Manta, whoop-de-fucking-do, and, you know, it's, everything's great, and Aquaman's hanging out with Orm. They're on much better terms than they used to be, very much acting like brothers, and they go to get burgers and beer. And they're enjoying their burgers and beer. And at one point, a little cockroach, a little fucking cockroach just scuttles across the table. Orm's like, he smashes that shit, puts it on his burger, and just and just starts eating it like a psychopath. And I'm like, that's perfect. Finn. They literally should have just had it say, after him just eating the burger, staring at us like a fucking psychopath, and just have Finn come across the screen. And I'm like, that is so representative of what of the DCEU was, chap. A seemingly delicious cheeseburger with a fat, crunchy, juicy cockroach in the middle that makes you gag when you start to chew it. That is the legacy of the DCU. Not to say they didn't have great movies. They did. In between all the fucking bullshit, all the awful things that Zack Snyder did and Warner Brothers did, and all the very different iterations of Warner Brothers did when they couldn't commit to anything. Not to say they didn't have some good movies. James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, Shazam, Wonder Woman. Some great films. But so much of that delicious burger had disgusting, fat, juicy cockroaches in it. so many Man of Steels and BVSs and Justice Leagues and David Ayer's Suicide Squads. Those were the roaches in what would otherwise had been like, this is a nice burger, but oh God, and the roaches came alive. They ate the patty, and they're literally just crawling on the bun, but you just bite down on it, and you start crying, chat, because of the potential, what could have been, what we could have gotten, and we didn't get it. And that is the last gasp, the last breath, the death rattle, the last juicy fat cockroach that was the DCEU. This movie is terrible. I'm going to tell you right now, The Flash is a better film. The Flash is a better movie than this movie, and I hate The Flash, as you guys know. But I had to be honest with myself when I was walking out of the theater, when I was driving home, and it was a quick drive. But I was thinking to myself, listen, you gotta be honest. The Flash has scenes in it that are good. You know, whether the whole product bad, obviously, but like the stuff with the parents worked pretty well. I thought Michael Keaton was very underused, but I still thought he commanded, you know, he had a presence in that movie. To see his Batman move around, some of the best action scenes was seeing him move around, not on the outside, but like in the silo. It's like there were good things in that movie, despite being, I think, in my opinion, a bad movie. Believe me, they're the babies and all that shit. But The Flash is a better movie than Aquaman 2, Blue on Blue. There's no question about that. There's nothing in this movie I like. There's just nothing. It's everything that is so awful about the original movie times two. And it's just edited to shit. You can tell that this is just so many different ideas and so many band-aids trying to fix it, and they just can't. I don't know what happened. I don't know what the original version was. I have no clue what James Wan did. But man, what an awful film. And it's one of the worst films of the year, which is saying something because there's been a lot of bad blockbuster films, a lot of bad DC movies, a lot of bad superhero movies this year. Some good ones, but man, what a stinker to end with for 2023. But yeah, chat, that's my opinion on Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Aquadad, Aquabro, my man, get the hell out of here and take your cockroach burgers with you. Thank you very much. But what about you guys? What do no one? There were 10 people in my audience. I think I was the 10th person. I was the double digit. I was the thing that made it cross over to double digits. There's no one in my audience. No one cared. No one cares about this movie. No one cared about the DCU anymore. It's dead. If those who liked it, did you like the movie? Did you not like the movie? Does anyone even care about this film? Let me know.